The Tanto, the smallest of the Japanese swords. In spite of its slight stature, the Tanto stands alongside its larger brethren as one of the most elegant blades in the world. While quite capable of piercing armor and dealing horrendous damage, it also served as a capable utility blade, an exquisite artistic essay in steel, and even as a protective charm. While it may be the smallest of the traditional Japanese swords, its impact on history has not been. Today, we're going to be delving into what the Tanto is and the history of how it came to be. Let's get into it. If I were to start talking to you about Japanese swords, the image that would likely come to mind is that of a samurai carrying two swords, the Katana and the Wakazashi. These are the Japanese blades that we see regularly in TV and movies. But there were other blades that saw as much, if not more use than either of those blades. These were the Tanto and the Tachi. The Tachi was the Katana's bigger brother, and the Tanto was its companion. While the difference between a Katana and a Tanto, or a Wakazashi and a Tachi, appears obvious, there is an official means of distinguishing them. The type of blade is determined by the length of the blade in shaku. One shaku is roughly 11.93 inches, or 30.3 centimeters. Tachi and Katana exceed 2 shaku. Wakazashi are between 1 to 2 shaku, and Tanto are typically less than 1 shaku, with some exceptions. In spite of its diminutive stature, the Tanto is still considered to be a sword of equal stature and worth to the others. The Tanto often filled the same roles as Western daggers of similar proportions, such as the Germanic Bauernwehr or the Rondel dagger. It was serviceable for general utility tasks, but was also suitable for close quarters fighting and could be used to drive through gaps in armor. Unlike many Western daggers, the Tanto was designed to be easily assembled and disassembled. Tanto make use of a half-tang construction. The grip completely envelops the tang and is held in place by a single tapered wooden pin. Tanto also feature a metal piece called the hibaki that sits at the shoulders of the blade. Most often, it is made from copper, but other soft metals are known to have been used as well. This provides a tight fit in the scabbard and prevents the polished surfaces of the blade from rubbing against the sides of the scabbard. Many Tanto only have a grip and a hibaki so that the scabbard sits flush against the grip, like this blade. Others have a small guard that provide the hands some protection, but still provides an overall sleek profile. By removing the anchoring pin or the mekugi, the grip, the guard, and the hibaki can be removed to service the blade or any of its furniture. Some viewers may be a little bit surprised that this is a Tanto. The modern American Tanto, popularized by cold steel knives, feature a very distinct change in the bevel at the tip of the knife, creating a very distinct angled point. Many people believe that this is one of the defining traits of the Tanto. However, that geometry is very obviously not present on this specimen. The American or westernized Tanto tip is essentially an exaggeration of what is called a kisaki on Japanese blades. The kisaki is essentially a secondary bevel denoting the tip of the sword. Kisaki vary greatly in shape. They can be quite long, extremely short, or anywhere in between. Kisaki are common on Tanto, but Tanto without kisaki are just as common, if not more so. Whether a blade has a kisaki and what shape it is one of the key insights into identifying when a Tanto was made and by what school. Speaking of when Tanto are made, let's take a look into the origins of the Tanto. The origins of the Tanto go back to the early Heian period starting in 794 AD. Prior to the 10th century, blades in Japan were straight, uncurved weapons. These blades are referred to as Chikoto or ancient weapons. Just like Japanese culture at the time, these blades were either reflections of or heavily influenced by China and reflect mainland weapons of the day. Examples of these are the tsurugi and Chikoto tachi, both popular Chikoto-era weapons in Japan. However, by the end of the Heian period, the distinct curved blade we associate with Japanese blades had emerged. The drive to Japanese or Nihonto blades was likely driven by a number of factors. One was a strong cultural shift away from the influence of Tang Dynasty China to a separate, unique identity. Governmental control based under Chinese codes of law and ethics began to fail, and conflicts with large clans began to break out. Nobles began to consolidate their holdings, driving demand for additional weapons and the rise of a warrior class that would evolve into the samurai caste. Distance from Chinese influence and trial and error through the ongoing clashes of the Heian period would provide the push for Nihonto to emerge. Archaeologists believe that prior to the Heian period, Japanese swords had evolved from predominantly thrusting weapons to cutting blades, a theory reflected in the form of the Jokoto Tachi. That tradition was continued and improved in the new Japanese blades. While straight blades can certainly cut effectively, a curved blade reduces the amount of surface area in contact with its target at one time, allowing the force of the cut to be transmitted to that smaller area. This was accompanied by an increase in focus on cavalry forces during the Heian period. Curved blades have long been a favorite among cavalry troops, as they don't have much of a tendency to catch in their targets. That's an important feature when you are running past your target at a full gallop. Towards the end of the Heian period and the transition to the Kamakura period, the tachi became the preferred weapon of the mounted warrior. In spite of its primary use on horseback, the tachi was also a potent weapon on foot as well. Being at least 2 shaku long and often longer than that, the tachi provided quite a bit of reach. But length can also be a problem in closed quarters, such as buildings, and even the best warrior can lose their weapon in the midst of battle. The Tanto emerged to meet the needs of the warrior that the tachi couldn't. Much smaller and more compact, the Tanto was easy to carry in combination with the tachi when fully armed, or by itself in a less hostile environment. While the tachi was predominantly meant for cutting, the Tanto could be described as a thrust and cut blade. It was predominantly meant for the thrust, but it was quite capable as a cutting blade as well. Very few Tanto from the Heian period still exist. Part of this is due to the passage of time, but it is also believed that the Heian Tanto were considered more utilitarian and expendable blades. Most of these blades exhibit the features of the Hiratsukuri geometry. Much like this blade, they featured a simple flat bevel up to the spine of the knife. Simple and straightforward, these blades would evolve into the artistic blades we are familiar with today, starting with the transition to the Kamakura period. The Kamakura period was largely driven by the newly emerged warrior class. Power was split between the imperial court, warlords, and religious leaders. Ongoing conflict between the court and the warlords meant the need for warriors, and by extension weapons, were in high demand, and many of the major schools of swordsmiths came into dominance during this time period. Other pursuits in the arts, such as painting, literature, and sculpture, also flourished during this time period under the dominant samurai caste, and this interest in art would bleed over into swordsmithing as well. Tanto evolved from their more expendable form to be valued blades in their own right, earning a place as an artistic expression and not just a weapon. Demand for the Tanto increased greatly during this time period, and by the end of the Kamakura period, Tanto production had drastically increased. The Mongol invasions during 1274 and 1281 AD made their own impression on Japanese blades. Mongolian weapons and tactics, combined with superior numbers, were a particularly unpleasant lesson for the Japanese, and without the intervention of multiple timely typhoons, they might have proved to be fatal lessons. Swordsmiths began seeking ways to improve their blades to stand up to the demands of warfare against the Mongols. The appearance of hai, or fullers, was one means. The increased use of laminate constructions with harder and softer steels was another approach. Pattern-welded steel layered repeatedly was a means of refining steel into higher quality. Steel bars could also be welded with iron bars in various ways to create composite blades with harder edges and softer cores. Changes to heat treating, curvature, and other features were also experimented with. Tanto of the middle Kamakura area were usually straight and predominantly the Hiratsukuri geometry. However, a new geometry, Kanmuri Otoshi Zukuri, emerged during this time. It mirrored the Hiratsukuri profile up to the tip of the blade, where a back clip was forged into the profile. Tanto at this time were also of a fairly standard length, ranging from 21 to 26 centimeters, or roughly 8.25 to 10.25 inches. By the end of the Kamakura period, all Japanese blades elongated, and the lower range of Tanto's lengths was in the 26 centimeter range. Additionally, more curvature and greater blade width can also be observed in many of these later Tanto. Additional blade shapes had evolved by then as well. The katakira hazukuri was another emergent geometry that had one side of the tanto exactly the same as the hirazukuri, while the other side had a bevel that ran partway up the blade and left flat, like the shinogi-zukuri geometry on larger blades. And on that note, I'd like to thank the sponsor for this video, K-Bar. While most of you are most likely aware of their USMC fighting knife, they have branched out into other designs over the years as well. K-Bar makes the classic American Tanto, but unlike many other knife companies, they also have one that is based on more traditional lines. If you think this looks like a modern Kanmuri Toshizukuri geometry, then you aren't the only one. I think it's pretty cool that K-Bar has this homage to traditional Japanese blades. Check out the link in the description where you can find both K-Bar Tantos. Now, let's move on to the Tanto and the Warring period. In 1333 AD, imperial control was re-established over Japan, only to be shortly overpowered and replaced by the Ashikaga shogunate. This ushered in the Muromachi period and the next evolution of Japanese blades. Of particular influence during this time was the beginning of the Sennoku period, or Warring States period, starting in 1467 AD. While Japan had not been the most peaceful region prior to this time, the conflict escalated greatly. Military tactics began to move away from a reliance on cavalry forces. Infantry became a mainstay of Japanese armies. Later on, muskets began to take their place on the battlefield as well. Massed volleys followed by a spear charge became the favorite tactic. Swordsmen supporting the spearmen required a shorter blade than the tachi for the close quarters combat on foot. The tachi began to fall out of favor and be replaced with what we call the katana. Prior to this time period, though, the term katana had actually been used to refer to the tanto. Early tanto, or the Muromachi period, developed into much longer blades, exceeding 30 centimeters and pushing up to 43 centimeters, or 12 to 17 inches. If you think that breaks the rule of a tanto being one shaku from the beginning of the video, you're right. The lines at this time period between the tanto and the wakazashi are somewhat blurred and foreshadow the popularity of the wakazashi later on. On the other hand, shorter but thicker tanto with a bit more curve were also made during this time period. This time period of oversized tanto didn't last terribly long, and there was a return to the Kamakura era style tantos. With the onset of the Warring period and an increased arms trade with China, smiths began to focus more on mass production. Individual and artistic characteristics observed in previous blades became less common, and overall quality of blades dropped. Towards the end of the Muromachi period, the katana had become the primary weapon of the samurai, and the wakazashi was beginning to take the place of the tanto as a secondary weapon. The role of the tanto was further reduced throughout the following Momoyama and Edo periods. Essentially replaced by the wakazashi as a secondary weapon, the tanto was largely relegated to wear around the house. Tanto production plummeted as there was a large number of quality tanto already that could fulfill this purpose. After the unification of Japan, there was even less demand for blades, and those that were made were predominantly created as artistic pieces. While these blades were beautiful to behold, the quality of their making was often not as good as prior eras due to the lack of martial intent. By the end of the Edo period, the time of the tanto had pretty much ended. Further blows in form of government restrictions and bans would be encountered in the 19th and 20th centuries as Japan modernized. Today, tanto are produced in Japan by master craftsmen in limited numbers alongside their larger brethren. Obviously, the military importance of the tanto has long since passed, but they remain an important cultural icon and stunning pieces of art. Thanks to Japanese culture, many original blades have been preserved throughout the centuries for us to study and appreciate, and a thriving collectors community exists throughout the world. For those looking to break into that world, I recommend a great deal of study before making your first purchase. I would recommend the Connoisseur's Book of Japanese Swords as a good book that's easy to get a hold of. Another resource to look at is nihonto.com. You'll find good articles there, as well as original blades for sale with proper documentation. Let me know what blades you want to see on the channel in the future, and think about hitting that sub button. And as always, stay safe and keep living the knife life.